Now let's go ahead and let's make our art in Illustrator here. So I'm going to go to File, New, and we'll make the width and height 300 by 300. Everything else should be fine here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the stroke and select None. And the fill here doesn't really matter what it is because we're going to be changing the color later. But I'll make it a dark color just because, well, it's usually the standard here. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to make some rectangles here. And you're probably wondering, well, how does this make it into a text circle at all? And you'd be surprised how this works. But I'm going to show you, all you need to do right now is make some text circles or some rectangles here. And I should mention that the larger the rectangle, the for our purposes here, the less detailed the text circle is going to be. And in a mobile game, kind of like the one that we're making, that's is probably going to be a little bit better. Okay, so you can go and you can experiment if you want with this here. I'll just maybe add in something like that here. And look at this. So I'm going to push Control A to select everything. And you might need to do this a few times here, okay? And all I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a new art brush. So you click this little button here, New Brush, Art Brush, okay? And it should come out like this. And what you want to do is you want to make sure the direction of the arrow is pointing to the right, okay? That's all we need to do here. And what we'll do next is we'll add in an ellipse tool and we'll find the center. And once you're in the center, click Shift and Alt, okay? And you can make this circle fairly small, and you'll see why in just a second here. Now, go to the bottom, and you'll see that you now have your new brush that you've set up here that essentially works here. And that's all that you really need to do is it will stroke around that. And you can play around with other different brushes here, like you can add in that. You can add in something like this, and you can and brushes are really neat here. So this works out pretty well. Now the other thing is you want to make sure that it is within the bounds here. Okay, and that actually looks pretty good. I kind of like that. I kind of like that little circle there. Now what we can do is we can select this circle and go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Okay, and what that does now is it eliminates everything else. It eliminates the stroke, and you can now edit these. So we can click on this, and now we can make it a white color. So in Xcode, we made it 0.9, right, out of 1.0. Now the top in Illustrator is 255. So if you go 255 times 0.9, you get 29, and look at that. It's right there. One thing that you actually end up doing is once you start using computers a lot, your guesses end up being quite correct. So 229, 230, somewhere in there is going to be good. And that is going to be our, well, our first circle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat the process. Exactly the same thing, except for let's go and let's make a different circle, okay? And I'm going to make this even simpler. Okay, and again, we can go, and if we really wanted to, we could pick the kind of orange that we want. So kind of maybe more of a brighter orange like that. And we can go ahead and we can do this here. So we can go and add in one at the top, one at the bottom, maybe one in the middle, something like this. And again, I'm going to make this fairly not detailed, so there's going to be quite a bit of orange in there. Okay, and there we go. And maybe just connect that. So let's copy this and go to New Brush, Art Brush. Right, you want to make sure that it's to the right here, and you can see that we now have a new brush. Okay, let's delete everything. Let's add in our circle here, and we'll say that this is a circle. Alt and Shift, and we'll make the circle fairly small. And what we want to do is we want to add in that cool little brush here. And I think that looks pretty good. and it's maybe a bit too much in the dark here. But for now, I think that does look pretty good. Remember, this is going to be fairly small. Now, if you want to do it over again, like you don't like this, there is no harm in going back and adding in another rectangle here. So let's kind of do the same thing, but we're going to leave the middle part of it open, right? So we'll kind of move this down here, and yeah, so therefore we'll just kind of leave this middle part kind of open like that, and maybe something like this. And again, the more detail and the more time you spend here, the more kind of cooler looking items you have. One thing to mention is you shouldn't have anything along the edges. So let's just go ahead and let's make a new brush, art brush of course, push OK, and there we go. And you can see that it adds in a new brush. And you can always make more than one if you want to. So we'll add in the ellipse here, push Shift and Alt, and let's add in that second brush, see which one we like better. And I think I like this one just a bit better, okay, because it's going to look cool when you rotate it. All right, I'll maybe just move it down so we can put it all within the bounds here. Again, what I like to do is I like to go and Object, Path, and then Outline Stroke, and that way we can change the color if we wish. I'm just going to make the just a little bit lighter. Just a little bit, not too much, because we do want this to be in the foreground here, okay? We have a nice orange. In the next tutorial, we'll export all of these two items and we'll put it into Xcode. This concludes the tutorial.